matter who you are, where you are, what your choices have been, and what karmic timelines and contracts you have journeyed, the light is calling for the reunification of all aspects of life in this realm now. It is calling for the cleansing of all polarities. It is calling for the rising of all sacred heart centers now. All are being summoned home to the greater light now.
Hi, and welcome to Whole Soul Mastery's Live Well, Live Whole podcast series, where we inspire and empower mind, body, spirit, wholeness, and integration. I'm Marie Moeller, and I'm an author, intuitive, and a channel, as well as the host of this podcast series. And I'm here today with Jonathan William. He has a BA in history from Plattsburgh State, where he developed his passion for writing, research, and public speaking. Living in New York, Jonathan draws inspiration from nature and is an avid hiker, cyclist, and kayaker. A Reiki master and founder of the FAST system of healing, Jonathan is a dedicated mentor who provides support to assist people in cultivating a relationship with their multidimensional self, also known as the I Am Presence. And he's also written a book entitled The Pyramid of Presence. And I really look forward to talking about all of this with you today. Jonathan, welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much, Marie, for having me. It's a great opportunity to speak to your audience. I've been following your work for a while now, and I've been interacting on YouTube. You probably know me as Johnny Be Good 313 on YouTube. So I like to throw that little tidbit out there. So there's some history there. There's some definitely energetic exchange between us and your audience for sure.
Yes.
And I'm just really connected with this work and bringing this information forward at this time. I also do channeling, healings. I love to get into nature and let downloads come in. I have my phone. I always have my phone with me to take notes. So there's always opportunities to draw that inspiration from the divine. So it's always coming in. So that's what I do. You know, it's really a practice of being present. You know, the pyramid of presence is all about cultivating presence step by step, and how to do that really. When you're in that state of presence, there's just that flow. You know, you don't feel pain, you feel connected. And that's what I've cultivated over the years, having gone through a lot of health challenges, autoimmune diseases, things that took me years to figure out what they were because doctors really didn't know what was going on. So one of the health challenges, autoimmune disease called ankylosing spondylitis, which affects the spine. It actually is a deformity of the spine where they also call it bamboo spine, where it really gets rigid. It gets these calcifications. And over the years, just really tapping into and asking for that divine insight. You know, how can I heal this? How can I do this in a way that's going to really nourish me and bring me back to wholeness? And the answers do come in when you ask. And that's really, in my book, that's the first pyramid of presence, is asking. Be humble, just whether it be family, friends, colleagues. You know, I ask the divine, I ask the Holy Spirit always to show me the way every day. So that's the first pyramid of presence, is ask. And then you go from there and you start to form a relationship with the I Am Presence, the creator within yourself. And we could run through, you know, step by step a little more later on about the book, but that's really an introduction to me. I don't want to get into too many details. I want to get into the nitty gritty, you know?
Right. Well, it is extraordinary how our lives call us in pretty unique ways to access and to cultivate this connection, right? My invitation looked very different, I'm sure, than your invitation to this connection and this cultivation and this ultimate conversation with this deeper presence inside us. And yet the journey is similar for all of us. It is a learning how to cultivate this connection, and I've used the language over the years of giving ourselves permission to access this, right? It really is an opening and expanding inside ourselves. It didn't occur to me in my, in my teens and early adulthood because I didn't have this language. We're not born into a world that has given us much of this language. Even to some degree, people who practice religion or certain faiths, and I grew up in the church, right? I didn't have the language then that I have now, but it was because of my catalyst, my invitation to something more, because everything from this world couldn't solve the problems that I was facing and couldn't offer me the solutions that I needed. So I was summoned too into that deeper connection with my spirit, deeper connection with my presence. And the first step for me was giving myself permission to connect with this presence inside myself, was to invite it in and start a conversation, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. And you mentioned giving permission. That's the second pyramid of presence. Now that I think about it, I don't actually state it that way in the book, but I feel that now. The second pyramid is be, and then forming a relationship with the creator within. It's really giving yourself permission to be and to find out those deeper truths about who you are as a multidimensional being, not just as, Jonathan the human. We are so much more than that. We are made from pure love. Your heart is the first thing that's born, and it's made from the pure love of God presence.
Right, it is. Well, can we dive into that a little bit? Because I think that's going to be the seeded foundation for our conversation, which I would imagine Pyramid of Presence is the foundation of the work that you do with yourself and with clients, right? So if we've mentioned the first two, let's talk about those. Is it 8 pyramids of presence that you talk about in your book?
Yep. That's the section. Entering the pyramid of presence. There's other sections to the book which lead up to that. Basically, the first section is reframing your perceptions about God, because the word God has been distorted, and we all have perceptions of what we believe God to be. And in the first section, you really have to start reframing. I don't tell you, what God is. I have my own perceptions and my own connection with the presence, right? I call it the grand omnipresent design of goodwill, oneness, and divinity. That was something that along the way that I wrote down to try to reframe my perception of God. So that's the first section. And then it leads up. It's a journey to lead up. It's an introduction. I speak about ascension. I speak about different aspects of ascension and different aspects of cultivating presence. And then we delve in to the 8 pyramids, which we went over the first one, which is ask. The second one is be. The third one is open. So ask, be, open. So they lead into each other.
Right.
And open is your heart center. It deals with the pink flame of love at the heart center. So you use that flame, you use mantras, you use devotions, spoken word, because like we were saying, the power of language is so immense. And we weren't taught the proper language. We were taught a different form of language that didn't serve us as well.
Right.
So open is the heart center. I lead you through. There's visualizations. It shows you, it shows you in the book how to hold your pyramid of presence, how to hold this structure, right? So you hold it and you allow the energy to work. And there's different points that correlate with the chakra system. And you could feel these when you connect your thumbs at these different points. So that's in essence how you're led through the pyramid of presence. There's teaching, there's practical application, visualizations. And there's also my own divine inspired poetry, which really helps people to feel that essence of getting in touch with that divine spirit.
Well, I think, well, poetry is art. I love all that you just shared, but I'm really marinating right now in the energy of just the poetry. As soon as you said it, I could feel it. And it's like a living language all unto itself. And that's what art is. Art is spirituality, like it is spirit expressed. And when we can bring that into language and we can bring that into words, we can bring that into sound, we're sounding spirituality into our experience in it. It lifts things off the page. I think anybody who's experienced just any form of incredible art, right? There's something that is quite extraordinary that empowers us and invites us to activate in this higher knowing, the medicine that's inside all of us. And presence is medicine in this world at this time. You know, a lot of people, I love what you're talking about, because you must have taken all the places that you journeyed to find relief from some of the pain I would imagine you were experiencing in this, the searching for healing. You know, you hybridized, you melded and brought together a lot of the things that you learned. And then I'm sure it sounds like you also channeled in your own two-way communication with the divine, with spirit, with your higher self, some insights, and then poetry also came in as well to put some accent marks, I think, on the teachings and the sharings that you were bringing through for people. It is a time where we're really being challenged of whether we can know that all this energy is going on outside of us. There's also been a history of all this energy going on inside of us, right? Because we have layers and layers of karmic energies and frequencies that get embedded in our chakra systems that we carry through time. And that is the ultimate question a lot of people ask, whether they have the language for it or not, is how can I make this connection, right? How can I, it's almost like people might say, how can I be connected at a time like this? And it's like you and I would probably say, oh, but that's the one thing you need to do it,
Exactly.
to be connected in times like this, right?
That's the one thing you need. And it's actually very easy to fall out of it, very easy to forget and get spun up in the outer. When you let your mind run amok, your heart's not in charge anymore. Your mind is spinning you, and then you get nauseous, you start feeling it in your stomach, your heart starts pounding because it's like, hey, listen to me. Like it's a reminder. Right. It's telling you to come back here.
Right.
You know, and I caught myself just recently in this. It's a tornado. And if you're caught in a tornado, the only way out is up.
Right, right.
If there's debris spinning around you, you know, there's cows and there's trucks and there's houses. It's in one of the, it's a teaching in part of the book. It teaches you how to go up and out and not try to force your way through the debris, because that's gonna hurt. You're gonna come out bruised. Yeah.
No, I had my own experience of that tornado, and I think this is relevant to people today, because I think it's a version of, it's a spiritual crisis. Our world is having a spiritual crisis at this moment in time. We've seen it many times in biblical times. And as people who listen to my transmissions and tune into my blog and the messages that I share, we are in biblical times. We are having our own experience of a biblical time. And biblical times call us sometimes into the deepest challenge, but they also invoke and invite the deepest opportunities for change and this ascension process that you're mentioning as well. Yeah. And we have to go up when nothing in my life, nothing from this plane of experience could help even support me in any way to resolve some of the challenges I was going through. it became quite apparent very quickly that I had to go up. That was the only place where the answers were. Even though at the time when I was just beginning that journey, I didn't have this language, but you gain the language as you go through it. And the stronger the more you strengthen your spiritual core, the more you strengthen your faith, the more you make those connections and you cultivate that relationship, the more everything that you need begins to show up, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And you talk about choices, where we have thousands of choice points in a single day. If only, you took a step back and said, within this hour of my day, I had these 10 choices to make. There really are choices, and it is hard to choose, but you have to get back into your heart. You have to center yourself and find the practices and dedication every day that works for you to find that center of your being. It is a vertical and it's a horizontal axis as well. To find the coordinate, you have to go up, but you also have to go, this way as well. A coordinate is longitude and latitude. And a lot of times when you go up, it leads you to people and places and circumstances, here with people who can help you, like, naturopathic doctors or a chiropractor, somebody that could help you to alleviate that pain, provide a little relief, give you tools to empower yourself to nourish your body and to come out of these diseases that get stuck in the tissues, these energetic imbalances.
Yeah. And you have, it sounds like you've been trained in Reiki, you're a Reiki master. And I also want to hear about your fast system of healing, because it probably puts into practice some of the insights that you've written about in Pyramid of Presence. I'm sure they're somehow interconnected. But I first wanted to focus on the chakras, because these are these vortices of energy inside us that are these portals of awareness. And each chakra, I don't know that I've read this per se, but I have this intuitive feeling that each chakra is responsible for certain parts and systems of our body, right?
They
And
are.
so,
Yeah.
right. And so, when people are trying to heal, and when they've exhausted, heal on any level, it can be mind, body, spirit, right? In the totality of our experience right now, there are lots of invitations to healing in the spiritual crisis we're all going through, this ascension of our times, this biblical time. And it always leads me back to the chakras. And I'm curious to hear your perspective on the chakras, however you want to respond to that, because I know there's so many things we could talk about with regards to the chakras, but even just, connecting and attuning to our chakras, or do you talk about that in the 8 pyramids of presence or in your fast system? I'm sure the chakras play a part in the healing.
They do. They play a major part. Each pyramid of presence is correlated to a specific chakra. So the ask is the throat chakra. Okay. So you hold the pyramid of presence here at your throat chakra. You find this center here, and that's the blue flame of God's will. And you ask to connect with the Holy Spirit, and you ask to be shown truth, and you ask to speak truth. B, that's the violet flame of the sacral chakra. Open is the pink flame in the heart chakra. Surrender is the white flame in the base chakra. That's your, it's connection with the earth. And that's the white flame, like I said. So it's a purifying of that lower chakra that can get really distorted.
Yeah.
Surrender, there is also clean. That's the next one after surrender. Clean is, let me make a correction. B is the solar plexus chakra and the resurrection flame.
Wow.
Clean is the violet flame at the sacral chakra, where you use the violet flame to transmute stuck energy and move it. It also takes a look at your diet. It takes a look at chemicals in your cleaning products, water you drink. So it's really all encompassing it's all in one package. Like you could follow it start to finish, and it's a very one cohesive way, a pathway.
Wow.
And to go back to your original question, chakras are pathways. They're vortices of energy that connect you to your multidimensional self and these different attributes or virtues of God that we could easily connect to when we still the mind, when we listen, and when we focus our energy. And the way that I found to focus that energy is with the hands. And then use a visualization, use your spoken language, and the stillness, really listening, feeling into the energy.
I first wanted to respond to what you said about the hands. I think that's just what you did when, like at the throat chakra, these pyramids of presence. I know as a channel and somebody who engages automatic handwriting and having been a scribe for many lifetimes, when I heard somebody sharing about scribing messages from spirit, that our hands are the most closely linked chakras, our hand chakras, to our heart centers. So when we have our hands in these pyramids of presence in the work that you're describing, you're really bringing your heart's awareness to each pyramid in a really beautiful way. I just felt that so
Yeah,
beautifully. Yeah.
you really are. And yeah, your hands are very, very powerful focusers of energy. And your left arm connected with your left hand is in direct link to your heart on the left side of your body.
Wow.
Your right arm and your right hand is connected with power, right? So the left is love, the right is power. When they come together at the heart, it forms wisdom, right? So you have love, power, and wisdom in perfect harmony. And that's the threefold flame of life.
Wow.
The pink, the blue, and the yellow flame all together working in synergy. So when you can balance that left and right and bring it to the center of your being, you create this equanimity, you create this countenance, the presence about you that allows you to direct your life in a very peaceful way.
Right. And then you find yourself grounded in presence, right? And I've heard other people describe presence as a kind of divine neutrality, whereas again, while the storms might be brewing around you, there's this inner stillness regardless of all that's transpiring. And I think it's reflected in many of the spiritual masters, right? People that we would say had great wisdom through time and had kind of an otherworldly presence. They did. They were accessing their multidimensional portal of awareness and wisdom, that you can be in this place of divine empowerment and divine neutrality. And that's where you can listen for guidance in the moment, even if there's a storm right in front of you. And not to say, need to be very clear, like you said, like we are still like having a human experience, but we can access this other multidimensional awareness inside ourselves that sees far beyond any storm or any challenge or experience or circumstance we might be experiencing that's unpleasant in some way. You know, there is this spiritual aid or ally that lives right inside us. It is extraordinary. It is extraordinary. And it takes cultivating a conversation, though, to bring its gifts into your life, right? Otherwise, we have this perception that something is out there. And of course, this 3D matrix might, has very effectively conditioned ourselves that these things are elusive, that we can't actually ever access these things, or only a few can access a power like that inside themselves, and the rest of us just have to struggle and slog away and fight our way to survive here. And it's not true. This is for everyone. It's for everyone.
That's one of the biggest illusions and biggest lies, is that there's special people or special someones, that you don't have that access that they do, right? But your presence is your key card, right? Your signature, your soul signature is your key card. And when you spend time developing and cultivating and searching for that, you gain access to way more than you think is ever possible, or you think reality was, right? Things open up for you.
And that, where you start with pyramid, I can't remember if it was pyramid number one or if it was the foundation, the foundation that sets the tone, but that asking, do you share how, like, how you experienced an asking? Do you give examples of how people can begin that process to, I know for some people listening, some listeners will be like, they're already on board, they're already in the experience, and they already cultivate, and they can learn some things from the specifics of how you share your experience and wisdom. But some people finding this video, who knows, a couple years from now, might be just in the beginning of their search process and might be curious, how do you start a conversation? How do we start this? How do we start that conversation, right?
Yeah, it's all laid out. It's all laid out step by step. It's I like to say that the book is autobiography. It's an autobiography, but it's not about me. Like, I don't write these details about my life. I translated divine communication through my direct experience. And I say, this is what I did. And you could follow along similarly. It's going to look different to you.
Right.
It's not going to be my journey. It's not going to be the details, right? But there's a pathway, there's a progression that I went through, that I lay out, that people can go through as well. Like asking, I give specific affirmations that people can use as like a starting point, a template.
Right.
Then I always recommend that people develop their own affirmations. They're way more powerful.
That's been my experience. I remember, I think when I was in my journey, I found my way to Louise Hay's work, and she was all about the affirmations. And I was so excited to learn about affirmations and the power that affirmations have. But I did find over time that trying to use hers in her languaging it didn't activate me as much as when I started to figure out that I needed to write my own. And it's like we're creating our own stones in the path. We're creating our own pathway, right? With the sounds that work for us. But having a template to follow, like breadcrumbs to follow to begin with, helps you start the journey, helps you take those first few steps.
Absolutely, it does. And then having that focused visualization. So I teach people how to access these points, right? So the throat center right here, there's a V. Everybody has it, right? So this is like I call it the anchor point for your pyramid of presence for ask. The throat chakra, where your two thumbs, they come together right at this V.
Wow.
It's a very powerful way to focus energy. If you think about like acupressure, right? When you focus this energy with your thumbs and your hands at this point, there's a very powerful center right here. And they're all throughout your body. And it took me really listening and asking, like, where are these? Where can I find these passages where I can center the energy? And then information about different colors started coming through, different tones, right? So there's different tones that you could use for each chakra, or in the book, I just call them energy centers. So there's different tones, and they're all there that people can use these tones. And there's different combinations of like color, tones, how to use spoken word, which is so powerful. It's really a combinative effort, right? You put all these things together and they really work in synergy.
Yeah, as you were talking, it's amazing the power of color. Like, all this information is returning to us when we just open that inner door to our multidimensional awareness, because we all know this. I reference this in probably a number of podcasts, and I've shared it in some of my marinades videos, but we are accessing the power of colors and tones and sound. We are reclaiming this in our lives. And I've referenced the avatar film, and all the wisdom that we are these avatars. And I love that show. It's like 64 episodes and it looks like a children's show, but there's actually a tremendous amount of wisdom. And one of the things that I love the most about it is that the avatar reincarnates life after lifetime, as the avatar, but has to remaster all four elements each time he incarnates. And that's us. We are avatars remastering what we already know, right? This is us. And when we bring in the wisdom of color intelligence, right? The intelligence and the creationary power of sound and light and the chakra systems. I know that when I was in my avatar journey and I was rediscovering all of this, it sounded somehow familiar. And yet I would say that if you were speaking to me 20 years ago, I would have said, I don't know anything about that. And yet we do. And when we get into this material and we start seeking and searching for this divine truth in all these resources that we can access now today, we realize that we do remember. And colors are so profoundly powerful in their ability to heal, in their ability to activate awarenesses inside us. When I do soul readings with my clients, I didn't create this format, the guides did. They in the very early part of the transmissions that come through for people, they told their soul history. They tell their soul history first in colors. Colors will come through for people, and the information about their soul history and their soul patterning will come through in parcels of energy through their color codes, right? It's extraordinary, and it has never failed. And usually in my readings, 3 or 4 or 5 color codes come through first, and then packets of energy and just vibrational experiences that people have lived. But it comes through the colors. The colors tell the story, but they can also tell the story of wellness. That's like the story of experiences that my clients have had, but they also tell the story of creation, right? Colors are creational. And
Yep.
when you're talking about sound, right? And the sacred flames, maybe I want to focus in on that with you, because the flames you were describing corresponding to certain chakras, they were different colors than the chakras themselves, weren't they?
They are different colors. They're a complementary color. They work in synergy with the color of your chakra.
Okay.
Yep.
And could you share just a little bit about those sacred flames? I know about the sacred flames. I know that El Moria, one of my guides that I channel, is the keeper of the golden flame. And so I'm curious to have you describe your experience or what you understand about the flames and their power to facilitate this spiritual connection and this access to our multidimensional awareness.
Yeah, the sacred flames are vibrational, energetic energy that are formed in simplicity from love. And they carry different attributes of the creator. Like you said, Master El Mordia, I work with him on the blue ray, the blue flame, Saint Germain and the violet flame. And I teach people in the book too how to work with these masters, these cosmic masters, ascended masters, angels, archangels, Elohim, and how to work with these color communications, the color communion that's inherent within the flames, right? They're energetic signatures. Mm. So, and they each do something different. They each have a specific characteristic that corresponds to a specific chakra or energy center to make that shift that you're desiring.
Yeah. And when you were describing that, I felt the flames are a powerful presence themselves, right? And the presence is healing. It's a higher vibrational presence in the consciousness of the flames themselves. And, separation consciousness has been a part of this journey for many thousands of years for all of us that have incarnated into this realm during this window of time, this old world age and cycle that is coming to a close. And separation consciousness kind of dominated our experiences for all this time, but it is the anomaly. It is not who we organically are. And so we've mastered this realm of illusion, and we're coming back into the truth of who we really are. And it is amazing to have these, we can call them soul skills, but these tools and resources. And we are rebuilding that toolbox. It's like, I don't know, if you had a toolbox and you went on a ship and the ship is ravaged in a storm, and you're holding on to some floatable piece, wood in the ocean, and you're holding on to your toolbox, it might be empty, right? It might feel like it has gotten empty, and you don't have any tools left. But we've that means to me mastery of the third dimensional realm. When your toolbox is empty at this point, it's like we're emptying of all that we had to know to navigate this third dimensional realm, which is not the true reality of the divine design. And when people bounce into a podcast like this, a conversation between you and I, and our soul presences are right here in this conversation, very present inside you, very present inside me, we have the ability to access our toolboxes, and all these things come back. The language of the chakras, the powerful healing and creationary energy of color codes, and all these keys that you're talking about, and this communion with spirit, it's all right there. But we do have to, I love that your first pyramid is ask, because that is the permission to say, I'm asking for more. I'm seeking more of what I know that I already am as this avatar, but I'm opening the doorway inside. I'm opening this portal to know it again. Whereas I think when we descended into this realm at a certain level, certainly lifetime after lifetime, we closed those doors, right? That's what it felt like was required to survive here. But we're in this, as if we have French doors that we can open up our heart centers, right? We're opening up this portal into our heart's awareness and our consciousness. And it's a powerful ally that we need to have in these times, and a language that's returning to us. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And it really is a remembrance, right? It's we descended into this realm, and now we're ascending. So the way I look at ascension is just remembering the parts of you that you had forgotten, right? Remembering your signature, right? When I connect with people as well, one of the first things I see is color.
Yeah.
It really is so profound. Like if I connect with a client, I see color, I see like patternings of energy. I see what ray or what flame that they're here on working through, so, and when these people apply this information, this divine communion through communication in their life, right? If you know that you're on the blue ray, you're working with the blue flame, that you need to really speak your truth in this lifetime. There's so many things that come up that people, when they know these things, they can really apply them in direct ways in their life to really find their passion and find their purpose.
It's so amazing how that color shows up, and I'm sure many channels might describe that. I think it comes right in to partner with us, because it's, well, sound and light are what creates universes, and color, right, is an essence of light, right? And so when we tap into these rays of light, these flames, and these chakra color codes, we're activating a higher dimensional life force inside us, aren't we? Right? And a certain vitality comes back just by giving ourselves permission to explore. People don't even have to make the leap that they go from being a non-believer or a deep skeptic in some way to being a full believer, and skip the process and all the richness of the marrow that you get in the journey. When you become a discoverer, when you become the explorer, then you are seeking and calling in the experience for yourself. And I would say, I think that's also the difference for me between a third dimensional perception of knowledge and what soul wisdom is when the experience becomes your own, right?
Yeah. You're either watching the Indiana Jones movie. You're becoming Indiana Jones, right?
Exactly. So
You're going through these different, you're going on these different adventures through these different pyramids. You're discovering like these lost artifacts, which are remembered pieces of yourself, your essence. And it's so much more rich that way, right?
It is. It is. And I know that there's a music artist, Jana Stanfield. I may have mentioned her in some of my Marinades videos, but she has a lot of great lyrics about this journey. Anyway, this journey of reconnecting with our spirit. But she has a song, I think it's called My Little Red Book. And I don't know all the lyrics right now to even say them here, but I'll look that up and see if I can put a link in the video below. But she's talking about, I think, calling in mentors, calling in the empowerment of people who've gone before us, who've become the experiencers as the heroes of their own journeys. And we can call them in to empower us. Like you said, the ascended masters that are connected with these flames in the 8 pyramids of presence and also the chakra system. We're not going through this alone. I'm going to say it again, if people would watch Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I'm not talking about the live action movies, I'm talking about the cartoon version of the series.
One of my favorite shows of all time.
Favorite. Isn't it amazing, right? Because when you're in the hero's journey, when you're in the avatar's journey, it helps to see reflected in your experience, in the resources you're calling in, people who've done it too, or characters who've done it too. You know, we can enter into the mythology of stories from even thousands of years ago, right? I think that's why the guides in my transmissions often bring in these parables or these stories to illustrate, because we can identify with those characters because that's us. And that's this Aang character in the Avatar. And he, as the Avatar, has access to all of his other Avatar selves. And when he goes into the realm of spirit, right, he does this and his whole forehead lights up, right? I mean, his whole crown chakra with his arrow, which I love. But he is also calling in the power and life force of all lifetimes lived, of all the soul mastery he's lived. And we're doing the same, whether we're calling in our avatar skills from other lifetimes, or whether we're calling in ascended masters or Mother, Father, God, or Mother Earth, whatever fortification anyone listening to this video needs, it is available like that, whether it's through colors or language or mantras or affirmations. Like you said, there's so many different pathways in a way and portals for us to connect. But the key is having the awareness that it is time to connect. This has been this realm of separation consciousness and this experiment, really, of what it would be like to feel disconnected and perceive ourselves as disconnected from source. And I truly believe we are witnessing that in the outer world. And many people are experiencing it in their inner life as well, the crisis of being so separated. And it's amazing where I went through that experience, and it sounds like you did too, when you're summoned to this deeper connection because you're craving this healing so much that you're willing to, be willing to set aside or even clear the old perceptions that used to create our filters that kept us in this limited world. When we open, all those guides are there. All that support is there. All the avatars that you could ever imagine are right there. Right. And there's what I want to say is when we can speak so positively about these times, it's because we've cultivated this divine empowerment that is remembering that our toolbox isn't empty. If you're looking at your toolbox, anybody listening right now and thinks that their toolbox is empty, it's actually completely full and overflowing with an abundance you just can't even imagine yet. You and I have tapped into that. And even if you and I were to close out this podcast and step out into our lives in the next few hours and face a challenge we just never thought we'd ever see in our lives, we have the knowing already that that toolbox, even if in our toolbox to date, is missing a skill that we have, we're just going to call it in.
Yeah.
That's what helps people in these times. And that's the power of the presence you're describing, is that when you connect with this power of this presence inside, even if you don't right now in this moment have the skill or the resource or the contact or the abundance or whatever it is that you might feel like you need to transcend something in your life, you know that the universe and the cosmos is already on the task of bringing it to you and lining it up with precision, divine timing. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And all you have to do is show up with complete commitment to that process, knowing that, you know, there are difficulties, and how do you face them? How do you, it's not even overcoming difficulties, it's basically facing them with a relaxed and balanced countenance to walk through anything that comes at you, not to evade it. And you talked about Aang. I mean, I love Avatar so much. It's like we have them on DVD, we watch them on repeat, my wife and I, all the time. And he walks through his own process, right? He has to clear all these different chakras. He does it very quickly in the cartoon.
He does, right? As any show would, right?
Yeah.
But he's such a good illustration of, you know, what our work is. And they give a language. They're talking about energy and chakras and the, you know, the ascended masters and this mastery. And he even goes to clear his chakras at one point, and he seeks out a guru. Even though he's the avatar, he seeks out a guru to facilitate this chakra clearing process. But something comes up and interrupts that process and takes him into a place of fear. And he abandons this mastery work that he's doing, thinking that he's got to run and go save the day and rescue to some degree, right? And then realizing that he actually needed to do this work to have the power he needed to transcend that other experience.
Yeah.
Right.
And he had to drink the onion and banana juice at some point to get through it as well.
Right, exactly.
But some of that bitterness was there.
Right, exactly. You know, and that brings in, there's all these elements. There's all these elements that are really, I would say, I don't know if this would be your language, but I truly believe we are required now. Whereas before there might have been these knockings at the door of our heart centers, and people in their lifetimes of experience can choose to accept the invitation or not. I think at this point, there's really a requirement. There's somebody that I listen to who podcasts, and I've referenced this before. His name's James Gilliland. I think he's the founder of Asceti Ranch, and he's involved in all the UFO activity. But he's somebody who said, we have to become frequency specific to the new earth. And I had known that, but I had never gotten it quite as succinctly as he did in that one phrase. We have to become frequency specific to the new earth. And whereas before, I think it was okay for us to be out of alignment with ourselves or the planet, and that was okay in a separation cycle of creation, but not in a unity consciousness field of creation. So that's why it also feels so challenging in these times, because all the parts of us that are these separated fragments of experience are being squeezed or summoned back into fusing into oneness. And the discomfort of that can be great, but the bliss and the glory of that is epic. I mean, I just have to bring in the word epic, is epic what we're being invited to. And so the bliss that's waiting for us is extraordinary. And also the magnitude of the challenge that some people are going through as individuals, but also as a collective. It is extraordinary. It really is beyond the mind's conception what has to come into unity consciousness again. And that's when we just take a peek at our outer world right now, you can kind of see that, you know, it is a world in its own storm going through this unification process. And it's not easy. It's not easy unless you're in that place of grounded neutrality inside your heart center. And I think that is the portal of consciousness that is needed, that is required to get frequencies specific to the new earth. Would you say?
Exactly. And the heart is like your new base chakra. So from here, you're working from here up now, right? You're bringing the lower chakras into balance, and you're no longer in that fight or flight survival 3D mode. When you bring your awareness to your heart, and it becomes your new grounded center. You work from there up. You're no longer like in that fight or flight anxiety being squeezed, because I know that squeezing feeling. It's been here for a long time. I've been feeling it.
Right.
It's really a reminder to myself when I feel that squeezing. I'm like, it's really a diamond being forged, right, under pressure. Like that's how you forge a sparkling diamond, is under pressure. And when I speak about the flames in each of the pyramids, when you work with them, that section is called forging with fire. You're using that fire to forge the qualities, you're bringing these qualities of your divine essence forward. You're forging them under the pressure of this divine fire, which is really just an outpouring of love from these ascended and cosmic beings, that they pour this radiance and this love out through the flames.
And that's alchemy.
Alchemy, yeah.
It's alchemy.
My company is called Alchemical Accelerations. It's divine alchemy at its finest. It's a really direct way to work with alchemy. And some people tend to think about alchemy, you think about like, a medieval person in his laboratory with different, working with different vials and trying to make gold out of lead. It's really a personal transformational alchemy. That's the real gold.
Wow.
That's where you find the real gold. It's really an allegory. It's it's a metaphor.
Yes.
I mean, gold has beautiful properties, energetic properties, vibrational properties, but the real gold is transforming yourself, conception from lead to gold. That's pure alchemy.
Right. Yeah, into this, into our divinity, into our divine codes again. And I'm not somebody who knows too many properties about metals, but lead is, sort of, I don't know, duller anyway in color. It's kind of a charcoal gray color, right? And then you have the bright shining element of golden light. And if you just think about that frequency of kind of going from carbon based to crystalline based structures inside, that crystalline frequency has this glow about it, right? Whereas carbon and all these things have been important to our incarnational experiences. We're not discounting that, but I think we're also recognizing that a new day is rising, right? A new dawn is rising, and we're attracted to things that are light filled versus being attracted to things that are full of density and complications and drama and trauma. And we're seeing this. We're seeing this. Yeah.
Yeah. And gold is very high vibrational compared to lead or coal. It really is. And if you take that over to the foods and drink that you consume, or the products that you use, they all have vibrational signatures that are either going to lower or raise your consciousness. It's really direct properties of what you're using. So if you get like nice nourishment from greens every day, these green vital nutrients, the chlorophyll, things that are fresh,
that have life force, that are grown from light, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, this attunement. And you mentioned, I think in one of the pyramids, or maybe it was one in the chakra portals and the flames, but I know that I went through my own process as I engaged this journey and took step after step in it. I know that I went through this period of time where I looked at my cleaning products. I started looking at all the energies in the things that were in my home, and from cleaning products, I started reading the ingredients on the labels of the food that I was eating. And before long, it's amazing how I just cleaned out a whole lot of toxins in my environment. And I also made the choice to change how I was eating. And I made the choice and gave myself permission. There's that language again. I gave myself permission to eat differently, to clean my house differently. So I think I went to like vinegar and baking soda and more organic elements that weren't toxic for the environment or the water that was going down my drain. You know, even thinking once it left my house, was I putting more toxins into the earth or was I contributing? And I wasn't voting for those things with my dollars either anymore, right? I had removed my energetic attention and support, my vibrational support for the toxic energy. And I started being even more conscious of voting with my dollar, my energy. People call it monergy, right? Money energy. I was paying into things that at least that I was finding that were cleaner and clearer than what I'd been using before. And so that's another thing to just bring up. I don't know what you would say about this, but people who are just beginning this journey, you know, it was shocking to me to see, even though I would consider myself, I was always a very intuitive child. I was very connected for a very long time. And then I went through some things in my life that began more of a separation process. Even though I was still so empathic, I went through this process of disconnection, I would say, right? Through high school and college and getting into the world and, you know, getting your degree and doing all the things that we do to live the programs of this matrix. I was most connected, most disconnected then. But when I was finding my way back and I was this avatar reclaiming and rediscovering my skills and I was looking at the things like, how could I have disconnected from the fact that this stuff is toxic, that those chemicals, how would I have been somebody? Well, that's what disconnection does. You just become really unaware. And if it's on the shelf, it must be safe, right? If someone's producing it, there's got to be some governing body that ensures that it's safe for us and that it's good for us, right? No, that's not the case in a 3D matrix. The 3D matrix does not have your best interest at heart, and it doesn't have our alchemical interest and our ascension interest at heart. No, it's more of an enslavement matrix. And so I was just bringing up, I guess, that when I saw that for the first time, I'll just say this briefly. I was at the I Can Do It conference. Have you ever heard about those? Louise Hayes, I Can
Oh
Do
yeah,
It. Yeah.
yeah.
I've only been to one, but I went and it was her 80th birthday celebration, the one I went to. And I was sitting in like an audience of probably 5,000 people. It was like the opening speech or, you know, the keynote speaker and opening up the whole weekend. And I was sitting next to him, and in a sea of 5,000 people, I'm sitting next to someone who's looking around and we're just waiting for things to get started. We didn't know each other at all. I mean, you know, at a spiritual level, I'm sure we knew each other, but from a human perspective, I didn't come with this person. And she turned to me and said, "Can you believe all the people that are still using toxic chemicals as their cleaning products?" And I remember sitting there thinking, I think I'm one of them. Like I didn't really know what she meant, but it was that was like a message from the universe actually for me. After that weekend, I came home and I kind of scratched my head and I did some searching on the internet like people do. I was searching for truth and I found some book called, I think it was called Green Clean. And I bought this book and it just educated me about alternatives to everything I had in my house that was a cleaner alternative. And that started my process. But I remembered having a moment, I think, of a little bit of heaviness of like, wow, I was somebody who was a purchaser of those products. And there's a little bit of, you just feel the heaviness of that. I was a contributor to that. And then I think we just accept that we're all conscious creators and we're all waking up in our own perfect time.
Right.
And we can have the heaviness of that guilt or whatever those energies might be, that we were participants in the lower 3D matrix in our unconsciousness. And then we can also celebrate, but I'm waking up, right? But I'm waking up and I'm not a participant in that. And I'm just going to shift my attention over here. We're used to this whole shame game that goes on inside us where we feel like we should have known better. Once you start to awaken, we start to, we can play that game with ourselves. And that doesn't help us be present in any way in the new creations we're bringing through, does it?
No, no. And when you hold on to that shame, it really does do a number on you energetically, to your body and your mental state of mind. But it was a recognition in that moment. Like you had a recognition, like I need to change the way that I'm doing this. There is that like instant feeling of shame and guilt because you were like complicit, right?
Right.
You were like you were in it. But that was your level of consciousness at the time, right? And the collective consciousness has a major pull on all of us. I mean, there's so many people on this planet. And when you start stepping outside of that little by little, it's like, yeah, you can have like that initial shame or guilt, like I'm doing it this way and everybody's like judging me or pointing their fingers at me. You don't want to follow along. You don't want to do it this way. There's that initial shame and guilt, but then it's an invitation to transcend a paradigm that's been holding us back.
Right. It's so true. And I would say in that moment, I never looked back. Like that was an activation for me. That was just another level in the journey of another invitation. There's a series of invitations that happen,
Yeah.
really. But this was another one. And I remember saying to myself, I don't know what she's talking about, but yet at a deeper level, I do have an awareness of what she's talking about. So I'm going to take the time and I'm going to do the research and I'm going to figure out what I can do to feel better about now this dissonance that's inside me. 5 minutes prior to her saying that, I wasn't feeling that. But as soon as she said that, and it was very directly brought into my conscious awareness, that was a catalyzer of not just cleaning out the toxins in my house, chemicals, but it really was the beginning of everything. I changed what I chose to eat. I changed from what I was choosing to purchase at the grocery store, and then from what's in my products to whatever, my sheets, fabric, whatever, clothes that I wear. It was a huge activation point for me. And we never know who that messenger might be. It might be spirit coming through a channeling or a download that we get, or it might be somebody that you bump into on the street, right? That you may never speak to again, but boy, they delivered that message. And I love that about the adventure of our lives. If we can realize that we're here to live, we're not just here to stay small and contract and survive. And that is really a huge piece right now of there in the bifurcation. We don't have to get all into that right now, but in the energies that are happening on the planet right now, there is this choice to choose life and to understand that life might be different than what we perceived it and conceived it to be. And maybe that takes us back to where you began, where you opened this up was, I want you to say it again, but my feeling of it was this opening up, this reconceptualizing our connection with God, like giving ourselves permission to have a new level of connection with God. How did you say that again?
Yeah. Reconceptualizing or reframing, especially the word God. If you can reconceptualize that, and for me, that came with like giving each letter in the word a meaning, right? So God, I changed it to grand omnipresent design, and then I did that twice. So I call it God squared, of goodwill, oneness, and divinity. And then you can take each one of those words and you can dissect it and see what it means for you. It's going to mean something different for everybody, and that's the beauty of it. It's so personal. Your connection with God is so personal and so individual that nobody can tell you what that is. It's your essence. It's your beingness, right? And you start discovering the colors, which are communication, smells, right? Images. There's so many different ways of communication that the divine uses to work with us and to get our attention. Yeah.
Well, and that's that. I think what you're describing, and maybe this is a good note to round out, but I have to have you back because we never got talking about your fast system of healing, which I do want to touch on in another podcast. But we're talking about living energy. We're going from a realm that I don't know if I'd say dead energy, but lacking a serious amount of life force. When you're in separation consciousness and we get that far away from union with source, that's where we have to kind of beg, borrow, and steal energy from other sources, because we've really been in a lack filled consciousness in this realm and scarcity consciousness. But when we're talking about the colors and we're talking about this reconceptualizing our connection and communications with God, and however we find ways to language that with ourselves and to rediscover that, we're giving ourselves back living energy. It's alive. It's a living light frequency. It's a living God code. Whereas before, I mean, many people might have read the Bible or excerpts from the Bible for centuries. But some people, it's just kind of a rote task. It's flat. It may not have a whole lot of life force. I can say that even though I was raised in the church, I had a deeper spirituality blooming inside me, just being the inner child that I was. And I would almost say that going to church had a lower frequency. I didn't know it then, but it felt flatter. It wasn't alive to me. And then I went through my disconnection, and then I went through my reconnection experience. And I tell you, like, the life force that has come back into my life, the animation of spirit in me, this is here for all of us. And that's what we're talking about. And this living, I would say, a living relationship with God again. It's a living communication with God again. It's a two-way communication. It's a multidimensional communication with source and the universe and all living energy, based on our frequencies and our choices as to what we want to portal into connecting with in any given moment. Now life becomes an adventure and not the challenge and the suffering that many people are accustomed to here. And it's always such a gift for me to connect with people who are tapped into this as well, because we can be voices of and messengers of, we know the struggle. We know the challenges. Our human selves, we still have 3D circuitry inside us. And we know when that gets triggered in our lives, because it still happens. But we have cultivated this multidimensional connection and awareness now, and a frequency that when we're triggered in our 3D selves, we say to ourselves, time to go on another adventure, right? Right. I think we were just invited to another experience, and boy, is this going to be exciting. And I can't say that I had that in my years of disconnection, this life alone. I know that there were times that I felt very challenged and I'm sure had elements of fear or shame or whatever those frequencies are. So yeah,
And the key to moving past that is not to hang on to it, right? To recognize it for what it is, and you may have been a different personality basically back then, right? So, and when you talked about your upbringing with religion and things like that, I would always change words in my mind. During certain things, I would change the words because they didn't feel right to me. So I replaced them with what felt good to me. Wow. And it really is. You talk about discernment, and I had that most profound message as well myself. Discernment is your number one ally in these times. You have to discern what's right and what's wrong. And
it's our umbrella for the storm. It's our umbrella for the storm, discernment, truly. And if we can see through the lens of discernment and give ourselves permission to partner with discernment and really allow ourselves to be discerning, like to make it a verb, not just a noun, but make it a living energy in your life, the whole journey changes, right? The whole experience of everything changes when you feel the power of that tool and that vibrational awareness. It's amazing. It's very fortifying. And I think I had this in the last Marinades video, but it was just two lines from a song from Karen Taylor Good, that faith is my freedom and it's stronger than fear. And when you were just talking about how you change the words in your mind, I suppose I've changed the word religion into frequencies of faith and frequencies of spirituality and frequencies of union with the divine. And I think that's alchemized the word religion, because it's made it so much more free. And I feel like the connection is so much more organic than I think even religion. For me personally, I would say it was kind of it's separate. I was still separate from my I am presence. I was still separate from my multidimensional self in the practice of religion or the concept of religion. Yeah.
because you're never told that the I am presence of God is living within you. Like you are that presence. You're never told that you have access to that presence that you are. You're told that somebody else is that presence and you must go to them for that.
Exactly. Exactly. So when we start to just open those inner doorways, just a crack. I mean, that's all we all needed. You found it. I found it. I think we're all summoned to find it at this time and if that crack opens and the light portals in, all we have to do is say yes to the light, and it will lead us and it will guide us in whatever steps our listeners need to take in your journey, right? The light is guiding. That's one of the biggest things the guide said to me for years in the transmissions is let the light lead. And you are that living light. I'm that living light, right? Jonathan, you're this living light. And we're all remembering, and there's no lack of this light. In fact, it just increases and increases and increases in infinite and amazing ways. And so I want to thank you. I want to thank you for joining me today. I want to ask you, where can people find you if they're interested in sessions? You do healing sessions?
I do healing sessions. I do both Reiki and fast healing sessions. I do a combination of both if they're interested. My wife also just joined my practice. She does Reiki and she does shamanic Reiki as well. So we both offer services. I also offer mentorship to guide people step by step through the pyramid of presence. And that also involves calls with me throughout the process.
Wow.
So you get my support directly as you navigate through the pyramid of presence. So they could find me at jwalchemical.com. You could also email me at jwalchemical@gmail.com. And I'm also on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search JW Alchemical.
Perfect.
And my book, I'm doing a special for your listeners now, $2.99 on thebookpatch.com.
Wow.
And I'll also put a link to a post where people could just click on the link and they'll go there, $2.99 for the ebook.
That's perfect. Oh my gosh. When I was listening to you today, I'm thinking I'm going to get that book. You know, I'm just everything. It's brought even more life force into my awareness as you're languaging it. And I know there's some important parcels of energy in there for me and for our listeners, right? This is a time to have a new level of curiosity about learning the language that is you. Learning the language that is your soul presence, and to give you the language and the understanding, at least some more breadcrumbs for your toolkit so you can connect deeper with the truth of who you really are. And so thank you. Thank you, Jonathan. I'll have you back on for sure. I love to meet your wife sometimes. It's amazing the work you guys are doing. And this is what we're all meant to be doing. We're all meant to listen for what lights us up from the inside out. And we're all summoned in our own unique ways. And I've been summoned into these podcasts and into offering these transmissions. And I know there's more and new and innovative ways that I'm going to be called to create in the future, as we all are. So thank you for joining us. You can find this podcast at Whole Soul Mastery on YouTube, but as well as on many social media platforms, of course, Twitter and Facebook, but also some alternative platforms. And you can see some of those links below this video as well. So until next time, both Jonathan and I send you blessings. Namaste.
Namaste.